You'll never find success if you can't actually get a product in front of customers in the first place. I've been a software engineer myself for over 15 years and I've made every mistake in the book. So in this video, I want to show you what changed to get 3 products into production in just the first quarter of 2025 alone. If you don't want to repeat all the mistakes that I've made, then check out the link in the description for weekly tips on building apps solo. The first point is realizing that the product itself is only 10% of the work. Actually getting it in front of users is where the real work begins. If you can think like this, then you'll realize that launching something super simple is your only priority at this point. And that stops all the feature creep and worrying that the product isn't good enough. And then you start to snowball and think, oh, I need to add that one extra feature before I can release it, otherwise it's useless. You have to stop going after your own misguided intuition beyond the original single feature MVP and realize that talking to customers is the only goal. If you do this, then you can get MVPs out in as quick as a month, which means you can have way more shots on goal in the space of a single year. Contrast this to the first app I ever built. I spent 18 months building a drop-in booking system for websites, and I just kept adding features and features, thinking that the product was never good enough. I built in the dark, I didn't speak to any customers, I did zero validation, and when I launched, there were 0 customers waiting. And I think across the lifetime of the entire product, it made something like £10, which obviously was a complete failure. So I told myself at that point that I'd never make that mistake again. So I then needed to understand what it took to get products in front of customers that they actually wanted to use, because there was no way I was going to spend another 18 months building something nobody wanted to use. It's not about pumping out shit, but you still need to realize that you're just guessing at this point. You have to validate, but even with validation, you still don't know that you've hit a winner. So get the product in front of customers, get them to use it, get them to give you feedback, and get them to tell you what features are missing and what's wrong. And that is way more accurate guidance than your own internal monologue. So stop building in the dark, get an MVP out as quick as possible, and then just iterate on customer feedback. Building this way will drastically increase your odds of hitting a winner and also give you more opportunities to hit a winner as well. So going further into the validation process, the whole point of doing validation before you start building is not only to increase the likelihood that you're actually building something customers want to use, but it also increases your confidence in the product when you're deep in the trenches and you realize it's not quite as easy to implement as you realized. Because this is what tends to happen when you first come up with an idea, you're feeling great, the endorphins are flowing, you're ready to dive in, and you start developing. And starting a new project is the easy part, so everything's going really well. But then at some point, you realize the technical challenges you didn't consider, the dream feature you came up with isn't quite practical. You'll start to convince yourself why the idea can never work and lose sight of why you started in the first place. Then suddenly you've got a new shiny idea, and that is far more compelling than the idea you're currently working on with all of its problems. So it's really easy to get distracted and then move on to that next idea. This is why you end up with so many half-built bridges and never actually get any product to production. If you follow this kind of process, and it's really common for a lot of developers, an entire year could pass with loads of half-finished products on your laptop. Like, genuinely ask yourself, how many products you have on your laptop now that are half-finished, that seemed incredible when you first started on them, and then you just grew bored of the idea when you were introduced to all of the technical challenges, or when some new technology came up, when the industry moved, because you spent so long working on something that the landscape around it changed. Adding to this as well is understanding that it's the final 10% of any project that's actually the hardest part. Making sure everything's tested, tying off all the loose ends that you've left open, fixing bugs, doing manual or QA testing as well. People always say that starting anything is the hardest part, but actually finishing, I've come to realize, is the hardest part. Especially as coders, building things is a really fun part, but actually doing all of the tedious stuff at the end is really, really boring, and can often be a cause of frustration, causing a lot of people to quit and never getting products past the finish line. So make sure that you're following a strict validation process, and I've spoke about this in other videos. Here's one you can check out right here. And also just make sure that you minimize the time that you spend building the MVP. Realize that most of the work is in the final quarter or the final 10%, and then you'll spend less time emphasizing all of your effort on the remaining 80%. Really try to be strict with yourself with time boxing your ideas, and that means focusing on one single feature that you've validated against one single problem. Don't get distracted with the idea of having to add loads of extra features to your products, because that voice in your head is just a bad distraction from actually getting a product past the finish line into production. And that means you'll have way more shots on goal and actually manage to get products in front of customers and iterate on them at that point. That is where most of the opportunity lies and where you'll have the biggest chance of actually hitting a winner. If you want to check out more from me, then let's just see what YouTube has recommended here. Otherwise, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.